In this video, I'm going to show all about getting started in Adobe Illustrator using the typography tools. There's a whole bunch of tools. Let me show you how to get started. I'm going to start by showing you how I set up my screen initially, and I did revert back to just an illustration with no type on it so I can show you all the tools easily. One thing I like to do to get started with typography is go to Window Workspace Typography. What this does is this resets your menus over here to the left, or your panels I should say. These panels that are available or easily available are the typography panels, the tools that you will use the most with typography. So you have your character panel first, paragraph panel, and those are the two I use the most, to be honest with you. You also have an open type panel, you have character styles, paragraph styles, and you have several other panels that you will likely use in conjunction with the typography you use. The panel you will probably use the most is the character panel. With the character panel, I'm going to go through all of this in a moment, but keep in mind there's these two little arrows. There's an up and down arrow to the left of the word character. If you click that, it actually will expand or contract the character panel. I like to have everything visible in the character panel and in the paragraph panel, so I like to have both of those expanded out, and you just click to the left of the character panel to see that. Now you'll see that there's a bunch of tools that are associated with the type tool. So if you click and hold the type tool, shortcut key to the type tool is T. So hit T, you'll go to the type tool. Let me first show you what the type tool is able to do, because there's actually it's a little bit more involved than just doing one thing, and then I'll go down through some of these other tools. So with the type tool selected, you have the option of clicking once with the type tool. Just click, but the problem with this is if I type a word or a series of words and type, you see that it just does one line. So it'll go on forever. It'll do one line forever. If I hit return, and I have to hit return, it'll do another line. I have to hit return and do another line. So you can type with this just by clicking once and letting go, but it is a little bit of a pain. So I'm going to go to the selection tool. You see that my object is now selected. I'm going to hit delete on my keyboard and it will delete. The option that I like to do with the type tool, once you go to the type tool, is actually I like to click and drag. If you click and drag with the type tool, you see that it goes ahead and fills it with some text. You can go ahead and type your text in there, and you'll see that it actually fills only within that box. It's constrained within that box as you type. So I like doing that better because I don't like my words to go off the edge of the page, and you can actually control it a little bit better with that. If you go, for example, if you go to the selection tool, you can grab a corner of that box, and by default, at least at first, if you drag the corner of that box, it will allow you to scale that box and adjust the constraints of your text. All the text is still there. If you make the text box too small, it's kind of like InDesign. InDesign does this as well. You'll see a little plus sign. If you see that little plus sign right there in the bottom right corner, you can actually click it and make another text box. So now I have two text boxes. This would be nice if you're doing columns, for example. I'm going to hit undo, edit undo, to undo that and kind of go back a step. There is another option you have with this. Let me just escape out of that. Let me undo twice. There we go. Another option you have with this, there's a little handle right here. If you grab that, it will actually give you a little warning there. You click it once, it'll give you that warning, and it actually says double click to, let me get it to say it again, double click to convert to point type. If you do that and double click it, it gives you a warning. It says the selection contains overset text. The overset text will be lost upon conversion to point type. Do you want to continue? If you click yes, you'll see that it is now basically, well, it's still type, but it has a different editable function. For example, if I click and drag that text box now, you see that I'm stretching the text. So it is still editable text, but you can squish it or stretch it. If you hold down the shift key as you squish or stretch, or as you drag, I should say, click and drag. As you click and drag, if you hold down the shift key, it keeps proportional. Otherwise, you are liable to stretch or squish the text. It also is still selectable, so you can still change your font in there. It's just that it allows you to stretch or squish your text. So if I click on those text boxes and hit delete with the selection tool, you see that I can get rid of them. A couple other tools you might want to try. I'm going to go back to the type tool. Type tool does more than you might think, but there is an area type tool. This area type tool is pretty neat as well. If you use the area type tool, you click and you see that it gives you a little warning. You must click on a non-compound, non-masking path to create text inside a path. So that's what that is what this tool does. For this tool to work, it will not work if you click on a path. You actually have to click on the, it will not work if you click on a fill. It will work only if you click on the path or the edge of the object you're clicking on. It has to be a closed path. It has to be a complete path. So if you click right there, you see that my text goes into that apple shape, and it goes ahead and fills it with random text. So again, for this tool to work, you have to click on the stroke or on the edge of the path, and you see that it fills. It gets rid of your fill color though. So what you may want to do if you're going to use this tool, go to your selection tool, hit edit copy, that's edit copy, Command C or Control C on a PC, and do edit paste, that's Command V or Control V on a PC. And now you've got a backup, like another shape. And now you can go to the area type tool, click on it, and you have type, and you have the shape. You see that my shape is in front of the type, so if I want the type to be in front of the shape, I can go to object, transform, object arrange, send to back. So that front object now is in the back, and I can move that shape over by hitting my arrow keys on my keyboard or clicking and dragging with the mouse. So now I've got type on a shape, and that type of course is editable still. I can still edit that type. Another tool that's similar to that tool is the next tool down, type on a path tool. The type on a path tool in a similar way will give you a warning if you don't click the right spot. You have to click the edge of a path. So it has to be an existing path. So I can actually click on this path, and I want to click on the other path. I'm sorry, not on that path. So I might have to paste another one in there or zoom in. Yeah, it's not letting me. It's not liking that. Okay, let me try it again. Let's just do this the easy way. I'm going to do edit paste again, and I've got another shape, and I'm going to go to the selection tool and move that shape over. And now I can go to the type on a path tool, click the edge, and you see that it types whatever you want it to type on around the edge. So I'll just type apple all the way around. So as you do this, you see that instead of being inside the shape, it's going around the shape. And in a similar way, like I did before, I can click and drag this over, and I've got not only the text inside the shape, but also around it. So you can do multiple things. You have multiple options with these tools. Now you've got a few other tools. These tools I don't use as much, but they're very similar, very related. You might just want to experiment with them. The vertical type tool will of course type your text vertically, as you can see there. It's a little hard to read type that is written vertically in English, unlike other languages that may have we read left to right instead of top to bottom, so it's a little hard to read long words if they're typed that way. So I don't use that one a lot. You may find a use for it. There's a vertical area type tool, so all that's going to do, instead of typing the text left to right, it's going to type the text from top to bottom. So you can experiment with that one as well. A vertical type on a path tool, just like it says, it's going to change the orientation of the type that goes around an object. Now the touch type tool is a newer tool. It's going to do something sort of similar to what I did earlier. It's actually going to let you click on individual letters or groups of letters depending on how you use it, and it lets you adjust those letters individually. So you can kind of see I can get in there, and I can also click on this, kind of rotate those letters around just by using the mouse. I can even stretch them, skew them, Again, it's kind of like what I was doing earlier, but this is just for individual letters and lets me move them down. I can even still type those. I can still type those. Excuse me, that's what I was trying to say. I can still type those or change the words or change the letters later on by going back and using the regular type tool and selecting those letters. So I can change that to whatever letter I want, and it will let me do that. So there's a lot you can do with those tools. Now, just as important as the tools is the panels. The character panel and the paragraph panel. Character panel in particular is going to help you get started. And I'm just going to experiment a little bit with the text inside the apple. So I'm going to select the text inside the apple. Of course, you can change the color of the text either up here at the top or right down here at the bottom of your tools panel. You see that I've got a fill of black and no stroke. If you want to try adding a stroke, you can. It's going to add the default. I missed it. I didn't do the color. Got to select the color in this big box and click OK. So now it added a stroke of green. Kind of tacky sometimes to use strokes, but you might need a little bit of contrast. If I double click the fill, I can change the fill color. Again, don't see it because of the tacky green. I can change the stroke weight here, thicker or thinner. I'm just going to get rid of the stroke in the center so you'll see blue text. Go all the way down. So now you see blue text. Not very good blue text, but maybe I'll just change it to white text. Okay, so you can adjust the color. It's only adjusting whatever I have selected. In a similar manner, when you go to the character panel, it's only going to adjust what you have selected, whatever you have highlighted. So click and drag to highlight. Go to your character panel. You'll see you've got a bunch of choices for fonts or typefaces you can try. So you can kind of either scroll through those by hitting the up and down arrow, or you can of course click the down arrow and click on them and they will change instantly. In conjunction with that, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, well 1, 2. These two are the two I use the most. This is your the size of your font. As you hover over these different icons, you can see that there's a little balloon help that says what these do. So that's the font size. This sets the leading. So I'm going to start with the font size. You can either click the down arrow, choose a font size, or you can click in there and actually go up and down or type the size of the font that you want that to be. So that's the type size, that's the font size. This is what the leading is. It's basically like double spacing or single spacing your words, but you see that you can even overlap them and bring them together or spread them way far apart to kind of adjust the texture. So that's your leading. The leading by default is auto, and that changes depending on the size of your font, but you can adjust that to fit your needs. The next choice down is your kerning. The kerning really will not work for multiple letters. You do have the choice of optical and metric. Sometimes you might want to choose with optical. You might want to just go ahead and go to the next one. This is tracking. Tracking is the space between individual characters of your words. Not the spacing between words, the spacing between each character. So you can spread those apart or pull them together. Keep in mind you may want them to be legible, and sometimes pulling them too close together or too far apart might make these illegible. But you see, again, you can get nice textures with this. You can fill out your space easily by using your leading. If you do go in between two letters, let's just say between the C and the T, see how it's kind of closer, just might seem a little bit closer. You can go in here to your kerning and you can adjust that up and down, and you see as I go up, the spacing goes farther. That's just between individual letters. Okay, so if I just want the E and C to be separated, or if I want them just between the E and C to be closer together, I can adjust that. I can either click it and choose a setting, or I can type a setting. Okay, I'm going to go back to optical because that works pretty well. Now the rest of these settings I don't use a whole lot, to be brutally honest, but you can experiment with them. This is your vertical scale. This will kind of stretch or squish or skew your text. So you can experiment with that. I think it looks a little tacky. I think it looks a little bit, unprofessional, kind of messed up. Kind of looks like a mistake. The horizontal scaling in a similar way, it might work for you. It might be too much. So you can experiment with them. Sometimes they do come in handy, where you might not want to adjust your kerning or your leading or your tracking, you might want to try the scaling. The other one I have used maybe a few times is the character rotation. This is pretty neat if you have a font that doesn't have an italic setting. I'm going to change these back to 100 because they're gonna get on my nerves. If you have a font that doesn't have an italic choice, you can adjust this so that it looks sort of italic. Doesn't really work super great for all fonts. You have to actually adjust your tracking in conjunction with the rotation, but you can kind of make it look a little bit italic. That's the most practical use I've used for that. If you want to be just super creative, you can actually get words to spin and be sideways and letters to be sideways, and eventually they're going to flip. There's easier ways to flip the text. You can actually flip the whole text box, but you can experiment with that if you want to get very creative with your with your typography. Finally, the last one right here is that I haven't covered right here. This is your baseline shift. This one can get you in trouble. So this will move your text up and down, and it ignores everything. It ignores the shape. It ignores the path that's in. It just moves the text up or down depending on what you choose. If you use this, I say this can get you in trouble. The reason why I say it can get you in trouble is if you do this and move your text all the way up here or even up just a little bit and then go back and try to select your text with the type tool to adjust it, it's really hard to select. It's really hard to click on. So that's why I don't use that until the end of a project. So I'm just going to undo that, okay, and go back to where I was. So I like to keep that where it is by default at 0. Okay. Now at the bottom here you have some choices. You can toggle these little buttons on and off. This changes your text to be all caps. This is small caps. You can click them on, click them off. This is superscript. This is subscript. Click them on, click them off. Then you've got underline and strike through. Click them on, click them off. You can select more than one of these, by the way. You also have those choices. If you click the flyout menu right here, these 4 little lines, you have all caps, small caps, superscript, subscripts, and so you can choose any one of those from there as well. If you select Show Touch Type Tool, it will add the menu option down here to allow you to get those tools I went over earlier, and also right here where you can actually click on individual letters and just do weird stuff with them. Make them bigger, make them smaller, spin them around, do all kinds of stuff with them. Now the paragraph panel, that is going to allow you to adjust your alignment. That's align left, right, center. You have justification here. You kind of get a little preview of what that looks like from afar right there. You have indentations you can set. This is the whole left side indent, whole right side indent. This is your first line indent if you want to use that. So those are the primary tools I use. You can experiment with some of these others. I just want to give you a little preview of some of the features available in Adobe Illustrator when it comes to adjusting your type. Now at this point my text is still editable. I can still change the spelling and change the type, change the colors, change the font. Once you've got your type set and you like it, you can select your type or your text or your object or your path, whatever you want to call it, and you can go to the object menu and choose expand. When you choose expand, it makes that text, it actually brings up a menu. You can expand your object and your fill. I'm going to click OK. What that actually does is that makes that no longer editable text. I can no longer edit the text, but I can go in here with my path adjustment tools and I can actually adjust my type, adjust my paths. I can even go in here with the pencil and redraw the shapes, or the pen, or any other tool that I want to use to reshape my illustrations, because now they're more like illustrations rather than just editable type. So I hope this helps you get started using Adobe Illustrator's